guys, welcome to welcome back to my channel. It's May 14th, and so that means Ready to Love is back on our screens, and that means it's time for another review, season 4 episode 7 to be specific. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So the episode starts out in the ladies' lounge, and of course Uncle Tommy lets them know that the ball is back in their court. They have the power this week, and he is challenging them to go out with someone who is the opposite of who they usually go for. So that means going out with someone who is not their number one. So the first date we see is Alexis and Ron. They're going on like a golf date, and in true Alexis fashion, I mean, Ron is behind her, holding on to her, showing her how to putt, and of course she's flirting because that's what Alexis does, flirt. And they start talking eventually, and she lets him know that of course he knows that she's a devoted Christian, and then he says, you know, he prefers to live his life like a rock star, and she says that's what she likes about him. Eventually the conversation switches to Alexis telling Ron that AJ is her usual type. So I guess that's her way of letting him know that that's her number one, because remember, she set this date up because she sees Ron as her number two. But what she really wants to know and proceeds to ask him is if she's still his number one. In her confessional, she says that while Chrysanthemum is a young, pretty girl, I guess she sees her more as a trophy wife, and I guess because she's young, pretty, and doesn't have children, whereas if he wants something with substance, she feels like she has more substance to offer, being older, having already have a child, and all of that. So Ron answers her. He lets her know that he definitely still sees her as number one because their connection, I guess, is deeper, or he feels like they have made a more genuine connection. And also what he likes about her is the fact that she allows him to be a man. Honestly, it's great that they like each other, because at the end of the date, Alexis did say to us, the audience, in her confessional, that this date has really bumped Ron up. Naturally, if somebody really likes you, you're gonna really like them. And for me, I like that they like each other, but this couple is just not it for me. I don't really take to Alexis. She's just not my cup of tea. But yeah, good luck for them. We'll see where that goes. So after them, the next date we see is Amber and AJ. And Amber is the one who set this date up, and her reason for doing this is she says she sees AJ as attractive, but she's never spoken to him because I guess he comes off a bit arrogant to her. And then we cut to AJ, who says that he definitely also sees her as attractive, but they've just never really gotten around to talking to each other. And so he's looking forward to the date to see if there's something there. So let's start having a little bit of banter, a little bit of talking, and then he asks her, who is she feeling? And she says she's been feeling Ron and Chris. I guess naturally he noticed that he's not on the list, and he asks her, like, why haven't we spoken before? And she just comes right out and says, like, you're the reason. It's because you come across a bit unapproachable and arrogant, and that, you know, as though he feels a woman is supposed to do all of the work. I must say, I did feel like that was a bit, I don't know if it's harsh. It's good that she said exactly what she was thinking, but it came across a little bit abrasive. I feel like she could have said it in a nicer way. And of course, he definitely felt that way too, because he says sometimes his confidence can come off as arrogance, and I guess that's not what he's trying to give off. So all in all, I think he felt like, in his confessional, he said he definitely took a lot of blows in that date, and I can agree. I feel like the date was rather critical. At least what they showed us, what the producers showed us, it came across very critical of his personality, rather than trying to get to know him to see if her assumptions were actually realistic. And I'm just not seeing it there. Like, he wasn't convincing when he was like, he finds her attractive. Like, he said it very like, oh yeah, I find her attractive. Like, I'm not convinced they have anything happening there. For them, I would say it's more of a friendship. They should keep it as like, okay, cool, we can be friends, because she doesn't seem to like him very much either. Yeah, and that was that. The date was After them, we move on to the next date, and that's Chrysanthemum and Chris. And I must say, just from them walking in alone, they look very misfit. Like, they don't look like it's like two people who would be a couple. But anyway, let's not judge a book by its cover. So Chrysanthemum is letting us know in her confessional that she asked Chris out because she likes his vibe. She likes that he's calm and cool, and she doesn't like not having backup options. And for me, what I got from that was she strictly is asking him out just as a backup. I don't think she has any genuine interest in him. If anything, I see the interest to be quite on a friendly side. You know, you like someone's vibe, someone who you think you can hang out with, you can chill with, but I don't see any romantic vibe there. But anyway, even Chris was like, in his confessional, he was super surprised because he did point out that he tried to speak to her a couple times before and it went nowhere. And so he just basically was like, okay, that's not gonna happen, so let me just leave that alone. So he was quite surprised to be invited out by her. Anyway, they did sit down and talk to one another, and Chrysanthemum did open up about like where she grew up, and she mentioned that she didn't really know who her dad was up until maybe 6 years ago. And then, you know, Chris likes to talk about his trauma. So he did like, oh, word, you know, I knew my dad, but he denied me for most of my life. And then, you know, my cousin let me know that he passed away. And, you know, they got kind of deep in terms of sharing a little bit about their personal life, which I thought was nice. But it felt like two friends talking versus like, oh, we have a romantic interest in one another. But even Chrysanthemum at the end, she did say that she says she does like him, and he did say he feels like she 70% likes him and 30% not sure. I feel like it's more like 30% likes him and 70% unsure. But at the end of the day, I think they both know there's no romantic connection there, but they're still pedaling forward just to have, oh, I have a second option just in case. But I don't see romance there at all. Straight up friends. So cut to Amber and Joelle, and I must say, first of all, my girl Amber is out here spreading all the seeds. She's like, I'm not about to be voted off, okay? She's making a lot of connections because this is her second date that we're seeing besides like Chris and, you know. So anywho, I must say this date was quite unexpected. I think Amber is she's just so cute to me. And then when Joelle walked into the date, he looked all types of wonderful, okay? I don't like the accent, but he looks nice. I do think their age gap is a bit wide. But anywho, they had a great date, and I must say I was cheesing through the whole thing. It was unexpected. I wasn't quite sure what their vibe would be, but they had a really nice conversation. It was like a little, it felt like a dinner date. They were having wine and food. The conversation flowed, and of course they did get a bit personal, asking each other some questions. Like, for example, Joelle did ask Amber how would she feel dating someone who is 10 plus years her senior and who already has kids. And she just let him know, like, actually that's not a problem for her because she loves kids. She's a very nurturing person. And so I feel like that definitely gave him like a good insight into the type of person that she is. He also says that usually someone like Amber, who is like 31, is not someone he would go after, but he finds that she's very mature for her age. And because of that, he feels like there could be an actual attraction. I must say I agree with him. Amber does come off much more mature than the age that we know her to be, but she does come off a bit standoffish also. Like, she could be very careful, but she's also very blunt in with her feelings. I think sometimes she could say it a bit nicer or keep it to herself and just kind of make a mental note, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling about this person. Anyway, at the end of the date, she did say that she would have given him a kiss on his cheek if she enjoyed it, because when he came, he asked permission to kiss her on her cheek. And at the end of the date, she actually said to us in her confessional that she was quite surprised. It was very romantic and she enjoyed the date. And at the end, they ended with a little peck on the cheek, and I thought it was so cute. They had a really good date, and I think moving forward, if they are both okay with the age gap situation, we might have something there. The next date is Liz and Jason, and when I tell you Liz has on a green jumpsuit that is showing the body yaddy yaddy, and I mean, of course, Jason is quite smitten. He lets us know that he really, really likes her. Of course, he likes the way she looks. He likes that they have things in common. And I mean, he seems just elated to be there on this date. So without lingering around the issue, Liz goes straight for the jugular and asks him how does he feels about sex, as in no sex before marriage. And he says, boy, you know, it would be a struggle, but it's not something that he has an issue with. If that's what makes her comfortable, then he is more than okay with doing that. And after that, she asks him about their age difference, because as we know, he's 36 and she's 40. And he actually says he thinks 40 is young. He doesn't have an issue with the age gap. And he was like, oh, you even look younger than me. I'm not gonna lie, I like these two together, but I definitely get mom vibes when Liz is around Jason. For me, I don't see couple. Not that she is old enough to be his mom, but there's something about their interaction that I get very motherly vibes from them. I don't know, something about this date. Anyway, after they finish eating, they go on a carousel because they seem to have been at some sort of outdoor fair type thing. And on the carousel, they definitely got to know each other a little bit better. And one thing with Jason is he's very, I think, touchy-feely. He shows his attraction through physical touch. And of course, he goes in for the kiss. Liz says she was quite surprised. She did not expect her first kiss in this show to be with Jason, but she was quite happy about it. She was cheesing. They were holding hands, interlocking fingers. They definitely had a good vibe. Let's see where this goes. I don't think they're end goal, but I like the fact that Liz has Jason as an alternative option should things not work out with David, whom we have not seen yet up until this point. The next couple we see are Kyra and Aj, and of course, as we've heard many times, they do have history together. I must say the thing with these two is they do look really, really good together. I like the way they look, like physically together. So Kyra tells him that she really likes him and she wants to see where things go. And then Aj tells us in his confessional that he's really happy to be on this date because he's been slowly trying to dig himself out of the hole given their history. And he's just happy to be able to, I guess, have a second chance to make a better impression. So in an effort to break the ice, Kyra suggests that they play the game Never Have I Ever, which we all know how that game goes. You drink if you have done whatever the person says. And she says, the first thing she says is never have I ever cheated in a relationship before, and she drinks and he doesn't. And then he says, never have I ever been in love, and then they both drink. But then as a gateway to open up conversation, she asks him to expand on that and say, why haven't those relationships where he has been in love not worked out? She then asks him, like, did he make sure that he communicated what was wrong or what was right in the relationship when he was in the relationship? And he says he tried, but he's not sure if he did so effectively, and it's hard for him to trust people, I guess, in relationships. So based on his answers and them going back and forth talking to each other, she eventually tells him that she feels like there would have had to been a breakdown in their communication, why the relationships didn't work out based on his answer. And she also lets him know that her feeling of communication is it doesn't really make much sense if you guys aren't communicating with an understanding of what each other are saying. And he tried to make a little bit of a joke, which I think did not go over really well. And he replied like, not necessarily. So I guess he thinks communication makes sense whether or not you're understanding each other. And that's when we kind of begin to, we were kind of seeing like they're not really on the same page as far as communication in relationship and what they would expect regarding communication in a relationship. And that's when I think the date started to look a little bit rocky. So in her confessional, she actually says to us that that's one of the issues that she has when talking to AJ, where she feels like their communication is a bit like this, whatever that means. The word she actually used was that their communication is a bit stifled. Anyway, I guess seeing the way the conversation was going, AJ decided that he had to, I guess, open up, be a bit more transparent. And that's when he finally said that being, a son to a single mother, a lot of the times he just had to, I guess, assume a more lone role, and so he just knew how to fend for himself and be by himself. And the consequence of that has been that in a relationship he doesn't always communicate with a companion because he's so used to just kind of doing things and moving on his own. In my opinion, the date wasn't terrible, but I also didn't think it was that great. However, Kyra seems really happy with it because she says she's very hopeful. She says she likes that she saw a softer side to AJ, a more vulnerable side, and also she even went as far as to say he's in her top 3. So I guess from her perspective, it was a really great date. And he also said in his confessional that he feel like he redeemed himself with this date. So as far as they're both concerned, the date went really well. from what I was seeing, from what I saw, I think that somewhere along the lines, depending on how things go, there are certain things that they're just not gonna agree on. So Vernisha and Dietrich are the next couple up on a date, and their date gave me brunch vibes. I mean, on the table I saw fruit cocktail, croissant sandwiches, mimosas, and so it's obvious that they're having a bit of a brunch date. And initially, Vernisha lets us know in her confessional that the reason why she decided to take Dietrich on a date is because she feels like he's mature, he has a good vibe, but she feels like he's very, I guess, closed off. What she specifically said was, whatever you want to know from him, you need to ask him that specifically, because he's not someone that's going to just open up and let you know exactly what he's feeling. For me, Dietrich just keeps saying, oh, Vernisha and I have a great connection. Vernisha and I have a great connection, but he's not saying in what way, or I don't know. I can't remember ever seeing them really have any long conversations. So unless that's happening behind the scenes and we're not seeing that on screen, I'm just not understanding why he feels like their connection is so wonderful. Anyway, they start talking about relationships and expectations. He asked her if she would actually have time for a relationship. She says, yeah, because if it's something that you want, you make time for it. And she says she wants a relationship, so she is going to make time for it. And he then asked her, what is she expecting, I guess, from her man? What role does she expect him to play? And she says, nothing complicated. She just expects her man to be the leader of her household. And I mean, I think after that, he was asking her if she saw any of those qualities in him, and she was just like, I don't know. That's what she's here to kind of find out. Like, it's up to him to show her. And he just kind of regressed and started saying like, oh, he's so nervous. I don't know what that was about, if he just was genuinely nervous, but it didn't really leave a good taste in her mouth, because she says in her confessional, the fact that he's getting nervous from talking to her, she doesn't like that, because she likes someone who is sure in themselves, who's confident, and it doesn't give her the vibe that he's someone who could be a leader. And so because of that, I think she's just not interested. The date for me was just dry. Really dry. Like, I don't see any connection there, even though Dietrich keeps saying over and over they have a great connection. I don't think Vernisha liked the date at all. So we get back to the ladies' lounge after all of those dates, and as usual, Tommy wants to know what's happening, who's good, who's not good, and so he starts talking to the ladies. So we begin with Alexis, who goes straight into her date that she had with Ron, and she's telling them that they had such a great time. Their connection is just as real as it is on the phone. I believe the word she used was magical. It was magical, and their chemistry is also wonderful. And again, she felt the need to mention that, I'm his number one. I feel like at this point, Alexis is trying to rub it in, I guess, because she knows that he has a connection with Chrysanthemum as well. It feels like she's just rubbing it in at this point. Like, she says it so frequently. We've heard you. You're number one, okay? So naturally, Chrysanthemum was so salty, and she was like, oh, I don't really care what he says about who's his number one, because when we're together, he shows me different. She was salty. She was peppered in the corner over there. And so, yeah, I don't know what that's about, but they're clearly in competition with each other. Then we had Amber, who spoke about her date with Joelle. She told the ladies how unexpected it was and the fact that it was romantic. What she also said too was she spoke about their kiss. But for me, Amber made it sound like a full-on kiss. She didn't say, oh, a kiss as in a peck on the cheek. She made it sound like they kissed. I don't know if that's just me. So naturally, I mean, Vernisha kept it cute. She kept it cute. She kept smiling and everything, but she was pressed. And she said in her confessional that she was a little bit hurt by that, because I guess she feels like she and Joelle has such a great connection, and they've actually never shared a kiss of any kind before. So Kyra then speaks about AJ, and she is very, very happy with the date. She's actually called it a redemption date. She said he went from being one of the worst dates to literally one of the best dates she's ever had, which I think is pretty high to rank that date, but it's her perspective. And at this point, it's between him and Jason for her. Subsequently, Liz starts talking about Jason and the date that they had, and she said the date was really nice, romantic, all that good stuff, and it allowed her to see him in a different light, I guess in a good way, in a positive way. And of course, she talked about their kiss, their little moment that they had. And when I tell you, Kyra's face cracked. Cracked. I will show you a picture right here because she was just literally going on about how Jason is her safe space and that's the reason why he's still her number one, because she knows he will treat her right, yada yada yada. Like, her face could not hide her disdain. But in her confessional, which we cut to, she says, oh, that's fine because I'm super competitive and I'm coming for everything that Liz just said. So I think she's gonna really up her game with Jason, because I get the vibe from Kyra that she just doesn't like being anything except number one, and she's not gonna tolerate not being number one. So now that he has someone else giving him a bit of attention, she's gonna up her game. So that's gonna be interesting to see. So after all the positives, we then have Uncle Tommy asking the ladies, so we've gotten the good, who are we not feeling? And of course, Vernisha spoke about her date. And of course, Vernisha spoke about her date with Dietrich. And basically what she said was she doesn't really have anything bad to say, but at the same time, listen, the most positive thing she said was the food at the place was great. So you know, she thought the date was trash, if that's the best thing she could come up with. And then she was just like, he's not giving her leadership, you know, a man of leadership or confidence, because he was nervous. And also she says she has a hard time having him open up. And I guess all in all, she's just not feeling him. And then Kyra co-signed it and Liz also co-signed it. So it's fair to say he's gonna be in the bottom. Chrysanthemum then spoke about Chris and she kept it really brief. She was just like, there are just no romantic vibes there. And then I believe it was Kyra as well as Alexis both co-signed that, and they were both, well, they were all just like they only see him as a friend and nothing more. Amber then came with a lot of energy, all the energy, to tell us that she is definitely not feeling AJ, because right now she feels like he's just playing the game to get what he needs. And I mean, I wouldn't say I was necessarily surprised, but I didn't expect as many women to co-sign her, because Amber said it, Liz co-signed her, Vernisha co-signed her, Alexis co-signed her. So that ended up putting AJ at the bottom. And you know Kyra was not feeling that at all. That was all the talk of the ladies' lounge. And so then we cut the camera and we see Kyra meeting up with Dietrich and Alexis meeting up with AJ. And I must say, the one thing I've noticed about AJ is that he really knows how to work the woman that he's with. He, I think, remembers how flirtatious and touchy-feely Alexis is. So while she was saying what she was saying and she started complaining about not necessarily having consistency with him or getting enough attention from him, dude held her hand, moved her over, put her on his lap, and you know, was all up in her hair, in her neck. When I tell you, sis lost all concentration, did not even remember what she was trying to say, could barely get her words out. She literally had to be like, focus, Alexis, which is not surprising at all. I think he knows exactly what he's doing where she is concerned. Anyway, eventually she was able to get the information out that they discussed in the ladies' lounge, and we cut the camera to Kyra and Dietrich, and he's basically expressing that he does have a bit of, I guess, issues opening up, and she's telling him that of course the ladies have noticed this and this is their major problem with him. All in all, Dietrich got voted out, and it's just like, look at your life. Didn't I say last week that if he got rid of, what was her name, Tressel, that he would be going home next because no one else was really feeling him like that? And I mean, he took it really well, and he let us know in his confessional that he was gonna take some months off to just kind of focus on himself, and when a relationship happens, it happens. And of course, AJ is here for another week. And that was it for this week's episode. Cut to the snippets for next week's episode. We see Vernisha talking to what I assume to be either a family member or a family friend about her feelings for Joelle and the possibility of making other connections. And we see Kyra going on a date with Jason. We see Kyra going on a date with AJ. And we see Kyra talking about she's confused. I think this is exactly how she's going to play her game to secure her position with Jason, because naturally when you see someone that you like with someone else, you you start to up your game also. And I think that's her plan. She's another Alexis. I'm definitely getting that vibe. Alexis from last season. Then we also see Ron, who is going through a similar situation because he's torn between Chrysanthemum and Alexis, and we see them at some sort of like a club, and he's dancing with Alexis, then he's dancing with Chrysanthemum. Then we see him sitting and they're both on either side. They're literally in competition, going head to head over this guy, and Chrysanthemum is rubbing his leg while Alexis is like, oh, give your number one a hug. Like, it's ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, all three of them can just go. Like, leave. And yeah, that was it, guys. That was it for this week's episode. So let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, all of that. And until next week,